All right. Hello, everybody. My name is Paige Gardner. My pronouns are she, her, and I am an assistant dean for care services and also the interim director for student diversity and multicultural affairs. I'm excited to introduce this space as SDMA was looking for ways to kind of collaborate with amazing campus partners. One of our programs within SDMA is called Undocumented Student Programs. And we thought it was important that we created a space for open dialogue around this topic on stress management during a global pandemic. And so this will be a shared space and each person will have a chance to introduce themselves on this. And if you have questions when you do view this, whether it's on Instagram or on your personal computer, whatever that is, feel free to email questions at diversity@luc.edu. And we'll do our best to get back to you with those answers or we'll just get you connected to the right resource. So we'll just do that for starters. So I'm gonna ask for our undocumented student programs intern to introduce herself first, and then we will have our campus partners from Wellness Center introduce themselves. All three folks will kind of talk about their personal connection to this topic and why it might be relevant to our Loyola community. And then we'll jump right into tips and ideas and strategies around stress management. So go for it, Juana.
All right. Hi, everybody. My name is Juana Fonseca, pronoun she, her, hers. I'm actually a senior at Loyola this year and hoping to finish up in a couple of weeks. I personally feel like this topic is really relevant to me because I feel like there's been added stressors in our lives right now, just as students, and also just that transition of having to come back home and having to manage school while also family and helping out with the family. And I also have seen trends in other students, and they also share some of these stressors and even maybe different ones as well. And I think that this could be a conversation that they can benefit from.
Fantastic. I guess I'll go next. My name is Dr. Andrea Boyd. I am the staff counselor for diversity, inclusion, and social justice initiatives. It's a new position at the Wellness Center, and my closest campus partner. I'm an embedded position in the Damon Student Center with a strong liaison relationship with SDMA. And a good portion of my position is to focus on the experiences of students whose identities fall under the umbrella of SDMA, and realizing as we look at this COVID-19 pandemic situation that while no one is immune or safe from its impact, various communities are bearing the weight of it differently given the intersectionality of their identities. And so as a person of color, it is hitting the African American community quite heavily. We know that other Black and Brown communities, because of the intersection of socioeconomic status and identities in this country historically, many of our communities bear a much heavier weight of the destruction of this disease. And so that's important to me to understand that, not only for myself, but for the students that I serve. Just for your FYI, my pronouns are she, her, and hers. But I'm happy to be invited today and to have this conversation with you guys and talk about some tips and strategies that you might be able to use to help promote your resiliency as we walk through this pandemic.
Okay, so my name is Diana Stencil. I'm a licensed clinical social worker at the Wellness Center, and I'm really honored that I'm being able to be part of this panel today. I do some resource hours with SDMA. I'm somebody who really knows, who's also really curious about how to support marginalized communities, and am aware of the different burdens that are befalling some of the groups. And yeah, and I was the former kind of still co-chair of the support, the point person at Wellness for our undocumented students. So yeah, very dear to my heart. Also, I'm excited because I am a mindfulness instructor, yoga teacher. I'm very much interested in nervous system regulation, and this time period right now is ample, ample practice for all of us to be able to practice. There's a Tibetan saying that if you want to learn how to deal with difficulties in your life, add another log on the fire. Well, we maybe didn't do it, but the universe surely did. And so, yeah, I kind of look at this as a time for us to maybe learn how to better take care of ourselves, and maybe at the other end of this, we might have some more skills to use when things maybe settle down some bit.
Thank you so much for everybody introducing themselves. So let's start the discussion. What are ways, how do we start to talk about stress management during this difficult time period? And what have been some recommendations, possibly for students, undergrad or graduate, who might be dealing with a lot right now?
Well, first,
I would
okay.
go ahead, Donna.
So for me, knowing, really thinking about this in the context of nervous system regulations, like, I often talk about how we are all Homo sapiens sapiens, and our nervous systems have been around for 200,000 years without much change, right? And what we're going through right now is a whole lot of added stress. And so even though we're all Homo sapiens sapiens, every human being's nervous system is different because we're shaped by the positive and negative events that we've experienced, right? And so I think, like, I'd like us to first recognize, like, it is not a one size fit all thing. So I know sometimes people read memes and they're like, oh, I'm supposed to be able to do this to feel better. And it might not be the thing for your nervous system, right? Person who is reposting that, it's because that's what worked for them, right? And maybe in that moment of time, it might not even work all the time for that person, right? And so, like, really honoring our difference, right? And the other thing is that you are a human being and you're going to have all kinds of feelings, right? And so, that is evolutionarily how we got to be here today, that we have a flight or flight system, that our nervous system, we'll talk about this later if you think it's interesting, but that we can go into hypoarousal and be a little shut down and tired and stuck or numb out. Or we might be in that hyperarousal, right? Those were all what led us to still be here 200,000 years, right? Our ancestors had those, right? And so honoring that we go up and down those scales all day. So pre-pandemic, I would share that with people. You're human, you go up and down. People pretend they don't, but you were falling asleep in some classes pre-pandemic, and you surely are now, right? And so noticing that you're unique and trying to figure out, like, how do I make my plan, and not judging yourself for getting stuck or for being rubbed up, and not feeling guilty if you're the one that is doing okay right now. There's some of us that grew up in chaos and we're actually kind of doing a little better now because the outside world meets our world. So not judging where you are anywhere is what I want to be able to share.
I appreciate that Diana brings like a, I would say, like, deeply rooted in science and theory, like that this is her wheelhouse in terms of like the neurobiology and how emotional regulation shows up. And I come from a perspective, I was like, in talking with folks, that we are literally living in a time and space in which it will be in the history books, right? So 9/11, now they talk about pandemics of like what 1918 there was like a pandemic back then, the depression. So these are times in which they're very specific moments in history in which our normal shifts. Like there is a definite paradigm shift that occurs that we can sort of point to, this like one moment in time. And one of the things that I notice is that it's really difficult to kind of do the normal things that you do every day and step away from what's happening right now, right? Like there's no aspect, like you can't go just roaming the streets, you can't veg out and watch TV. I mean, maybe you can stream, but a lot of information that's coming across the radio, that's coming across TV, that's coming across the internet has something about COVID-19. And there's a lot of information coming at you. And on one hand, there is a desire to like stay informed and kind of like that accident where it's hard to sort of look away. But also realize that, as Diana says, that we're all wired a little bit differently. And so one of the things I think about in terms of like self-care is figuring out what your capacity for this information is. And so for some folks, they might be able to kind of dive in deeply and watch this with a certain level of curiosity and feel really informed and empowered by that, and other folks can feel overwhelmed by that. And really, in terms of like taking care of self, would be to be aware of like how you're being impacted by all the information that's coming through, and to figure out what that might mean for you. So, and to say like it's okay for me to say like, you know what, I don't want to hear about this right now. Like to take care of myself might mean turning off the TV and the radio and doing something that engages folks in a different way, and decide that for right now, I don't want to have to, I don't want to pay attention to this. And so I need a break. And that doesn't mean that I don't care or that I'm not informed, but that I'm at my personal capacity for this information and for right.
And to kind of tie in with the science of that too, like there is a neuroscientist who has been doing research following the impacts on our brains and minds since over the 30 years of technology. So the beginning of the internet till now. So that person has seen some things because we have so much tech right now. And what he finds is that just like we have often heard that we humans, Homo sapiens sapiens, crave sugar and fat. And that was because back in the real far back day, we needed to do that hunting in order to survive, to make sure that we had enough that kind of food. And now it's just too much, right? We do the same thing with information, is what he posits, right? So we feel like we need enough information, like I need this many nuts to squirrel away for the winter in order for me to survive, right? So it's automatic that some of us keep looking at the news, even though we know it's maybe ratcheting up our nervous system in some way. So just to kind of normalize that that's what we're doing, but then we can check in, right? We can check in with ourselves and like, how much is enough for me? How much is too much for me? One of my teachers says, I'm a sensitive soul. He's got this deep voice. I am a sensitive soul. I can handle 20 minutes a day checking in. And so like he stealthily knows these are my places I look, and then that's it, right? And so I think trying to figure out what that's like for you.
I want to jump in there and say everything y'all are saying is resonating with me, even as an administrator, kind of like dealing with trying to figure out how to regulate my emotions. I feel like I'm on ups and downs. It's like a roller coaster right now. And I have a friend tour of mine, one of my self-care practices, to connect with friends or mentors who can guide me. And in this case, I call her my friend-tor because she's my friend and she mentors me, right? So I told her, I was like, this is so difficult. And why does it have to be difficult? We're at home. I thought this was something that would be exciting to be at home. But she told me what makes it different is that there's no more freedom of choice, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
been mandated that we must be shelter in place and you are to leave home only for essential items, which is food, right? And if your job is essential and you need to go to work. And so that's where the stress, that's what makes it so complicated. So I was wondering if y'all might spend a couple minutes talking about what stress can actually look like. So you did a great job like giving us the context, but what could stress look like and manifest itself as while we are at home, especially for students at this time?
I have a prop that I can share. And I know it's going to reverse the imagery, but I'll describe it. But I think you're right, Paige. And also, when our nervous systems are in fight or flight response, flight, flee or fawn, like that's because we can't fight the coronavirus like we could a saber-toothed tiger, right? So we're kind of stuck in activation. And so it totally makes sense that you're going to go up and down. I've been telling people I'm learning how to be a better surfer. Definitely having my own ups and downs, right? And I'm just getting to be a better surfer because that's, yeah, what's going to be happening. So a lot of people use the window of tolerance to kind of describe what happens and what stress might look like or nervous system activation. And it can look really different per person. So the middle is the window of tolerance. And that's where we can handle whatever stressors coming up with not too much difficulty. So let's say you went to get a coffee pre-pandemic and they gave you the wrong order and you were going to be a little bit late for class. There are sometimes you can handle that without too much difficulty. You can get right back in your groove. Sometimes that feels like too much, and then you just kind of jump out of your window, right? We can grow our window, people. So if you feel like you have a small window, they can grow. So again, all of this is like being kind and compassionate with yourself. So we might go in one of two directions. So we might go into hyperarousal, and that's where we feel more anxious. We might have loads of thoughts in our mind. We might feel our body get warm. Our body might tense and brace. We might feel our chest constrict. Our breathing gets more rapid. We can also, this is also an activated nervous system. And so like the hypoarousal is at the bottom, and that's where we shut down. We want to numb out, foggy, hard to think clearly. We might disassociate, right? We tune out, we daydream. We do this all day. It's more dramatic now because like this is a really serious situation. And we're also at the end of the semester, right? So we go up and down all day, and it's trying to figure out like, what do I do to support myself when I'm in hyper? What happens when I'm in hypo? And don't be surprised if you dip from hypo all the way around to hyper. Sometimes it's just so we're in hypo so long that we end up getting hyper-regulated. We're in hyper-regulation and we might bounce down. And so it looks different for each person, right?
Right. And Paige, like I think what we could do, I will definitely, Diana will share that with you, and you can put it online, and I can also provide like a list of like what some of those symptoms might look like. So Diana makes the point that there are so many of them, but it could be anything where a running theme that I'm finding with folks is that they're saying that it's a lot harder for them to kind of sit still and like actually make effective use of the time that they have to study or to memorize things, or that they find a number of times people are complaining that their patience is a little thin. And so, you know, here you are stuck within these four walls, so to speak, with a small group of people, or maybe even a large group of people, depending upon your family structure, or maybe you're just by yourself and people feel agitated, they feel lonely, they feel scared, they feel restless. But there's just like a range of emotions that either you don't it's not typically what you feel, or you're finding that it's maybe a bit more intense of what you're used to having to cope with, or some folks may not be feeling anything at all, but or it may show up physiologically, stomach aches, headaches, tightness, muscle tension, and there are things like ears ringing, things like that, or that people may not necessarily historically associate with stress, but could possibly be associated with stress. And so I think, you know, something even as simple as like making a commitment to move your body regularly, whether that's doing, dancing in your house, or running around your backyard if you have the freedom to do that, or doing some stretches in bed. There are a number of things that we would encourage you to do to kind of help, because Diana can probably tell you what the impact is of body movement on your mood and on your brain, and your brain chemistry, and how that can help to potentially alleviate tension. For some folks, it's not a guarantee that it'll uh, make everybody sort of feel better, but it definitely is a strategy that we would encourage you to um, not abandon during this time, when we're all kind of sheltering in place.
I did have a question. So I think what makes this time very unique for the students in SDMA and just the students that we work with is that there's multiple stressors coming in from various places, sometimes related to their identities. And I think as humans, we tend to compile all these things. And I think common trends in people of color is that we kind of just don't decompress that in a way. So like how do you both recommend that these students cope with those various stressors? Like what are ways to kind of like decompress almost? um I mean, I don't know if there are any, but
I think what you're speaking to is important, and there's a couple different ways, but what happens in the nervous system is just an automatic biological response. So I think it's going to be really individualized, and I think honoring that, I think the context, right? Like there's different ways to try and manage around the context, like how much you're engaging or not. One of my mentors in the social justice kind of mind body movement talked a lot about how, each one of us in the movement, with whatever intersecting identities that we have different capacities, right? And so maybe you limit how much news you're taking in around the things that you're passionate about just for now. And it's honoring where your nervous system is at. I think the other thing too is like regulating your nervous system, and then maybe checking in with like traditional ways that that people before you or people you admire use, right? So there's something really neat about like that there's an app for people of color and meditation called Liberate, right? And so it's neat hearing the same kind of language and using that as a way to connect with the practices that might be useful for you. So there's kind of a way to do both, right? Like how am I taking in the information? Can I be kind with it? How much information? And maybe you don't have a choice. Maybe it's that your family is having to go out and work because of socioeconomic reasons, right? And so what you can do for yourself and your family is to take care of you, right? And that means your specific nervous system, and really being kind with yourself as you figure out what are the things that support me, right? And that's going to look different for each person, and I might be the context of, right, like listening to your favorite DJ, right? Like that's what's going to make you feel good, right? it might be looking up to some of the heroes that you have that have your shared identity, and maybe trying out some of the practices that they do. But does that make sense though? But the nervous system thing is going to be the same. But yeah, context is everything.
I think, Juana, to your question, I think you're right that there are a number of things that folks can be worried about at the same time, and but also I think some of those things may be, the worries are something that you can sort of sit down and look at and say, okay, what do I have control over? What do I have the resources to address, right? So if I'm worried about how I'm going to do on my calculus exam, okay, and I'm struggling with whatever, finding the area under the curve, there's some things that I can do. So I can reach out to friends, I can contact faculty members, I can, look into tutoring at the university, which is online. So those things are within your control. If you're worried about, you know, your susceptibility to COVID-19, there are things that you can do. You can shelter at home. When you go outside, you can wear a mask, those kinds of things. And so some things that there may be uh, actual like concrete steps or things that you can do. Um, there are other stuff that you may not have as much control over. So being a senior and graduating, I know a number of your peers may be worried about what does the job market what's it gonna look like in June and July? Am I gonna have a job, in August? And those things, while real concerns, we can't answer today, right? There are, as much as I would love to be able to tell you what it's going to look like, none of us realistically know. But this isn't the first time that you have faced uncertainty in your life, right? So senior year, maybe senior year of high school, like in December, you may have not known what college you were going to go to and what that was going to be like. And, or at some point you may have wondered, how am I going to pay for college, or how much money am I going to get, in my financial aid? So there are times that we have faced uncertainty before. It may have not looked exactly like this, but we can have confidence in knowing that, generally we have the strategies, the wherewithal in terms of like our creativity and our resourcefulness to be comfortable in saying that you are equipped to handle what comes your way, even though you may not be able to be specific about what that looks like, and trying to kind of rely on those kinds of things in the moment, and that you part of your career here at Loyola is about preparing you to face the challenges that come. Even though we don't know today what those challenges are, that hopefully we have equipped you with the thinking and the ability to be reasonable and rational, and hopefully giving you an access to a network of people, because no one here, I hope, feels that they stand alone in this process, and that if you don't have the answers or know exactly what the pathway is forward, that you can tap into a network of ramblers through the last 100 years, that you can tap into administration and faculty and staff and friends and loved ones in your community and in your churches, who are there, and that you can reach out to your representatives, so that hopefully, if we've done our jobs, that we have equipped you with with access to enough knowledge and wisdom to help you moving forward. right? We can't promise that that pathway forward is easy, but that you won't have to navigate it alone. And
Thank
so
you so
hopefully
much.
that students can take solace in that.
Thank you so much. And I do want to start to close us out for timing purposes, but some solid takeaways that I'm going to leave with from this discussion are one, that each individual and how we deal with stress is going to look differently. And so it is very important that we allow ourselves grace, right? And normalize it that, listen, this is just how I'm reacting. Oh, I'm crying right now. Great. And that literally was me this week. So don't worry, you're not alone in how you are navigating this. But honoring where you're at, giving yourself the space to express that. And then I loved what you said, Andrea, which is name what is controllable and recognize what is out of your control. And if you're someone like me who needs to see things visually, I will make a cute T chart and I'll say, this is literally the things I can control and literally the things that I cannot control. And then for the things that you can control, perhaps you can connect that to a resource here on campus. And because if you're watching this video, that means you are already connected to a resource, such as Student Diversity and Multicultural Affairs. So if you still aren't sure where to go, you do have SDMA, and you can email us at diversity@luc.edu with your question or concern. And I promise you that someone from our office will make sure that you are connected to the right resource. So those are the takeaways that I want to share. And then as a closeout for all of us, if each of us can maybe share one self-care practice that we have utilized so far, it could be fun, it could be serious, whatever it needs to be. And then maybe close out, especially for the staff members, a particular resource that you oversee. So Diana, mindfulness practicing, there might be some resources at the Wellness Center, there might be some telehealth services that the Wellness Center is also offering, Andrea, that perhaps you can talk about. And so that's how we'll kind of close out. And yeah. So I guess what I'll say is, y'all know who I am. I have two jobs. I work in SDMA, but I'm also an assistant dean and I oversee care services. So if students submit a care referral, I am that person who will reach out to you and kind of help you develop a plan of action and directly connect you with folks. And this can be from anything from economic hardship to food, housing insecurity, to academic concerns that are coming up or stressors that are inhibiting your academic success. So if you go to our luc.edu/CSAA website, you will be able to submit a care referral, and it's this really cute hand that has the heart in it. And that is the care referral button. If you click that and fill out the form, I will reach out to you within, it's a 24-hour turnaround with the exception of the weekend. You will have to wait till Monday to hear from me if you send a care referral in this evening. So just keep that in mind. And I think one way that I'm practicing self-care is I have this app on my phone. It's called House Party. And that is where I connect with my friends, and that is where we can play some cute trivia games or Pictionary games, things like that.
Oh, that's so cool.
And it's just an easy breezy space to be. Like, and you could pop in and pop out of different discussions if you see your friends on there. And it's like a house party, a virtual house party. And I don't know if I'm going to talk too much about house parties, but one thing I do know about it is that you can move in and out of different rooms and discussions and stuff like that. So it becomes a really fun virtual space. Download that app and get your friends to hop on it as well. And that could be a place to kind of build some community right now that has nothing to do with emails from the university, nothing to do with coursework, all about just social release. And so that's for me.
I love that. Something that I have been doing for a long time, and I still try to, is working out a bit. So I put on YouTube and then I try to follow. And it really has helped me a lot, just personally. But also another thing that I would do years ago and I kind of stopped just because of school and the amount of work, and now I'm actually doing it again, is journaling. And I love that because it like the exercises are both for my mental and physical just health, but I think that the journaling brings out something else, and I'm able to kind of reflect on the day, reflect on something that I'm grateful for, when things can seem so like dark. And so that's something that I've been trying to do, maybe not every night, but every like couple nights, and it really has helped.
My name's Diana again, and I am the person that teaches mindfulness on campus. I've been doing that since 2002, so I have a little bit of maybe ideas that I can share with you all. I'm doing some sessions that are virtual Monday, Wednesday, Friday till finals, and then half-hour sessions during finals week. That information's on our website and on Loyola Wellness Center's Instagram. They're interactive. So I know there's a lot of mindfulness apps and things, and those are great too. But if you want a little bit of personalized guidance around your meditation practice, this is how I would be different. And we're going to be with Loyola students, which is kind of cool. So obviously I meditate as a way of coping, but another way that I've been coping also helping my nervous system that's different than before is I started to pull out my adult coloring books. Have not used those in a minute, and I've been really enjoying that. And I pulled out my journal, which is going to be next, but that's kind of cheating, but I'm not there yet.
Okay, so this is Andre again. Again, staff counselor for diversity, inclusion, and social justice issues. I am an embedded position on campus. I had drop-in hours. So my encouragement for students to come in and kind of informally talk about what's been going on with them or express some concerns of venting spot. I don't have the virtual drop-in hours currently, but I'm encouraging students to reach out to me. You can give me a call on my office phone, which is 773-508-2534, and leave me a voicemail. And if you want to talk, I'm happy to talk with you on the phone. For those of you who are feeling a bit stressed and wanting more consistent support moving on, whether that's just overall stress as a student or identity related stress or all of that plus COVID-19, I want to let you know that the Wellness Center is providing online therapy for students who are physically located in the state of Illinois. And you can go to our website, www.luc.edu/wellness, and click on the appointment link and schedule yourself for an intake, and we will be happy to get you started. For those of you who are outside the state of Illinois, you can do the same, and we will get you connected to care in your community. So for any Loyolan or Rambler out there who is looking for some mental health support, some emotional support, please do not hesitate to reach out to us and allow us to help you tap into the resources here. If anybody's been watching TV or anything like that, we are all in this together and wanting to come out stronger than we went in and really help to bolster that resiliency. So that's the plug.
Great. Well, thank you everybody for your time, and we look forward to keeping in touch, and we wish everybody best of luck as you prepare for finals. And I'm going to stop the recording.